You're listening to Non-Toxic. I'm Daniel Penny, and I'm inside an antique septic system beneath the sands of Provincetown. More soon. Hey, non-toxic listeners. This is me, Daniel Penny. I wanted to share with you a little bonus episode based on an interview I did with the artist and activist Jay Critchley, who is kind of a Provincetown legend and has been thinking about the intersections of masculinity, environmental degradation, consumption, and a lot of the other big themes on this show since probably before I was born, if I'm honest. He is a really interesting guy and pretty funny and provocative too. And I was really pleased to be able to visit him in his studio and record a conversation about his life and his creative practice and just kind of what's been on his mind lately. I'm hoping it will tide all of you non-toxic listeners over while Amy and I finish up our upcoming collaborative mini-season project, which should be launching this summer. But for now, here's my conversation with Jay Critchley. I'm walking to the artist Jay Critchley's house, coming around the side to his yard, which is what he refers to as his fun park. And I'm gonna go knock on his door and say hello. We're gonna have a little studio visit.
Hello. Welcome. I think you're even early.
Yeah, well, I've been in Cape Cod for too long. Clearly, I'm already becoming too punctual.
Oh my goodness, that's scary. Do you want some tea or something?
Just a glass of water would be good.
Some water. Okay.
Oh, this is great. Jay just handed me the mug. It says Old Glory Condom Corporation, and it is an American flag stretched out into the shape of a limp condom.
Yes, you got it.
Maybe let's talk about your art practice, which I think is very wide-ranging and takes many forms. Where are we right now? I've heard you refer to your backyard as the fun park or the theme park.
It's a theme park, yeah.
Okay. So the cistern is just one of many attractions.
Right. My backyard has become P-Town Incorporated theme park for the affluent and those who love them. And I have a fairly large yard for Provincetown, and it's sort of, as you know, it's tucked away in a sort of a back street.
All right, let's take a tour around the theme park.
Well, it's winter, so, we're in the winter repair, rejuvenate time of year.
Okay.
But we've got Athena, the goddess of war, here that I got at a yard sale a couple of years ago. And there's an open space for gatherings. But one of the main attractions here is the I Zone.
This was in your exhibit, I think.
This was at Montserrat College of Art. This is a repurposed porta potty.
Okay.
And you can see it has a window in it. So I took the guts of the porta potty out. I call it the I Zone, like the iPhone. And I took the guts out, and so it's a mobile performance space. And I had it lit up inside with lights and stuff, and there's a lot of ways you can use it. But it actually moves, so you have a glass front. And it's good for like self-portraits, people taking selfies or things in it. And it's really about high-tech, low-tech. It's about the idea of compost and how we can fertilize the land, how composting toilet is like a basic way to deal with human waste. And so it's sort of like looking at that as a sort of metaphor for the composting of cultures and ideas. and things. Let's go in the cistern and get
things going
from the underground.
I don't think I've ever been inside your cistern.
Okay, well, I'll go in first, or do you want to go in first?
You go in first.
All right.
Jay's clambering down into a hole in the middle of his garden.
Okay. You step down in onto this. You want to hand me the mic?
Perfect.
I see feet, I see shoes, I see legs. Here you are.
Okay.
There's your little seat. You can sit on the floor or you can sit on that.
And it's just like damp earth and leaves and some
Twigs. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, now this is...
It's actually more spacious in here than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, I can sleep in here.
Sort of curled up in a fetal position.
No, I
Yeah,
can
you
six
can stretch
feet.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it started as a septic summer rental unit in the 1997. And everyone laughed at me like, oh, there's no housing problem here in Provincetown. I'm like, it's coming. So I had rediscovered this like after many years not looking in here. And one day I opened it up and it was like, wow, it's circular. It's, you know.
It feels like being in an igloo.
Well, I've never been in an igloo. It's cool though, because we're underground.
And this was used to store the shit from your house before you moved in, or?
Yeah, even when I was here. But the floor, it's a cesspool, so the floor is just sand. So everything goes into the water table. So of course they're illegal now. But at the time, there's still a lot of them in town. So it was just sitting here after I put another more eco-friendly system in, and it sat here for years. And now it's sort of become my universe.
So a lot of your art, I feel like, started taking the form of like a corporate endeavor. Why did you settle on that conceit as the frame for a lot of what you do?
I felt like corporations had too much influence in the 80s. Now it seems, we look back now, it seems very quaint. But, and I also thought, well, you know, if I can create a platform, wear my suit and tie and get up and be an expert on something, then I'll get, you know, my message across. So it was part performance, part persona, and a political way of commenting on, you know, corporate control.
And what were some of the policies or messages that you were trying to get across?
Well, I set up a number of corporations. One was the IRS, which we all know, but it's the International Rerouters Society. So it was about rerouting, reconnecting ourselves to the earth, you know, to the soil, to the sand. And so that, from that project, I create an annual ritual where I burn a tree out in the water and there's a political theme.
And when does this happen?
January 7th. It's always after the 12 days of, quote, stockpiling of the holiday season. And it's sort of a diatribe, political, spiritual, rant, singing event every year out on the sand flats at sunset. And I build a little boat and I find a discarded Christmas tree and we send it off into the sunset.
And this most recent year that passed, every year you have like kind of like a chant, right? Can you talk a little bit about what that chant
The theme,
was?
yeah, there's always a political theme. Words are a lot of what the ceremony is about. I do the 10 Commandments, like this year was the 10 Commandments of self-trafficking. But the theme for this year was carbon-captured broligarchs. And don't ask me to say what it's like back. I turn the words backwards and people chant it every time I do one of the 10 Commandments. We can actually, I could read a couple of the things. This is the 42nd year of the Rerooter ceremony, the IRS. And it started in, 1983 when we had dumps rather than sanitary landfills. So I was going to the dump, like a lot of people in Provincetown, we collect stuff from dumps. And all these Christmas trees and turkey bones and ribbons and everything was all like piled into the garbage. It was all mixed together. There was no recycling. So I started turning the trees up and created this forest dump. And I thought, well, what if I could reroot those trees? So I took a bunch of trees and I put them in places around town. And I replanted them. And monitored them, and it was sort of a symbolic way of honoring the trees. And then I decided that I wanted to, create a ceremony, to honor the tree, the lowly Christmas tree, which is really we bring it into our houses, these live trees. It's a way to exorcism. It's an exorcism of evil spirits when we bring evergreens into the house. So it was a way of creating a burning and a cleansing out on the water. So that's kind of how the ceremony started. And it was always at first it was just a personal ceremony. I didn't publicize it or anything. It was just a few friends. But then eventually it just sort of became, everyone knew about it and social media and everything. So then it became, which is fine, it became a more public event.
Are you choosing the right to remain unknown?
No back to Red Pack, Stragalore.
Being self-partnered, are you feeling self-carelessness?
No back to Red Pack, Stragalore.
Does your esoteric hedonism include a fragrance wardrobe? Are you experiencing preemptive revenge?
No back to Red Pack, Stragalore.
Have you reached a point in your life of being undruggable?
No back to Red Pack, Stragalore.
And from Dr. Ruth, are you experiencing what Dr. Ruth calls frictionless sex?
No back to Red Pack, Stragalore.
So let's move to We for Yanks.
Walk me through this year's theme, carbon captured broligarchs. What is the chant word? How do you say that?
Okay, well now you're going to test my it's Nobrak Derupak Sklergalorb. Nobrak Derupak Sklergalorb, which is carbon captured broligarchs backwards. Do you want to try to say it?
Sure, yeah. Join in. Nobrak Derupak Skraglagor.
You're good.
Skraglorb.
You're good. So the process of putting the ceremony together is I look through a lot of words and ideas from the previous year, things that, new words or things that grab my attention, and then I accumulate them all into categories like environment, finances, religious, tech, and then I put the 10 Commandments together. And then, people chant after each one, and it's sort of like the highlight of the ceremony. But there are also, I also sing the 12 days of stockpiling. I have other songs that I've rewritten the lyrics to, but we sang "O Blight Divine" because it was Divine's birthday this year.
And then I see you've got previous themes as well. on here.
Right, and then
Transactional storm surges, grass-fed capitalism.
one of my favorites is sports futility vehicles.
So, this one, carbon captured broligarchs. What does that mean to you?
Well, a lot of my work is about the environment, it's about energy, and so, carbon capture, the idea of this technology that's somehow going to save us from all the carbon in the atmosphere. We're going to capture it and we're going to plug it underground and somehow it's going to stay there, is like a fantasy, this whole techno fantasy that we think we're going to get our way out of, instead of just stopping, drilling. So the carbon captured, so the idea is that broligarchs, the oligarchs and all the tech oligarchs that the president has around him have been captured by technology. They've been captured by this idea of, we can just work our way out. We're smart enough. We have enough money but they're captured by this old idea of how we survive as a civilization, which is based on petroleum. So it's really a losing proposition.
Hey, are you enjoying this episode of Non-Toxic? I bet you are. Now would be a great time to hit pause and rate and review the show. It's through your recommendations and your support that other people can find this show. Thanks for listening. And I think, broligarchs connects to a lot of your work. In addition to touching on environmental themes, you often deal with ideas of masculinity or and the kind of pitfalls, I guess, of masculinity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I have a project called Limp diatribes, which came out of a project that I did for the Olympics in Atlanta in 1995, the year before the Olympics. I was an artist in residence there. So I did a book about the Olympics. And then I just couldn't get this word out of my mind, Olympics. And then I thought, we're so into celebrating the hard male penis, the erect penis, but how often is the penis erect? And when you think about it, most of the time our penises are limp. So I thought, okay, well, let's celebrate. Let's give some attention to the fact that, we're not always on, right? We're not always ready. We have a life, right? So I came up with this idea of the limp dicks, and with slogans like "Live and let limp," and "Be less than you can be," and those kind of slogans that I. So the broligarchs. You've got all these hyper straight white males,
Except for Peter Thiel, he's gay.
Well, Peter Thiel he's not one of the inner circle, is he?
He's funding it all.
He's funding it all. Peter Thiel. Well, that's another whole thing. This is him, right? But him aside, yes, it's definitely a very straight white male environment. And so, I also wrote a play called Olympic Diatribes, which I had a residency at Harvard, and I produced it there, and it was about a town named Limpville, and it was for people that celebrated their limpness, but of course there were people that came into town with hard penises, and so they disrupted. So there had to be some, conflict resolution with these folks.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss story.
I have read
star-bellied sneeches.
I have to say it hasn't been produced on Broadway yet, but there's hope. Yeah.
You've also done some political activism as well. Or I guess it's art as active. The boundaries between the two are blurry, I suppose.
I would say.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I think all art is political. whether we consciously think it is or not. When you show a painting of, in a very high-end living room with very expensive shiny fruit in it, makes a comment about class and about aesthetics. So well, before I became a born-again artist, which is at the age of 33, I found my voice, my rebirth. I was an activist. I was an anti-nuclear activist. I was involved with politics, McGovern, and anti-war, anti-Vietnam stuff. And then I came to Provincetown and started like collecting the land, the earth, the sand, the colors of sand, which I had started collecting, and I started working with the materiality of the place here. So I think a lot of these corporations we talked about, they have like a political kind of platform for, like Tacky, which is, as you know, I collect used plastic tampon applicators found on the beaches. They're washed up. And it's TACKI, Tampon Applicator Creative Clubs International. And it's about reclaiming these plastic tampon applicators and making like making sculpture and making a Miss Tampon Liberty gown. And I was hoping to make it like a folk art, like help people to make folk art out of the applicators. And, some people are doing that.
And you've appeared as Miss Tampon Liberty at various state houses and other places of government, right?
Yes, she's a very sacred persona. She appears at very important places like the State House in Boston, where I sponsored legislation. She's made out of 3,000 plastic tampon applicators. They're sort of tied on like the Peanut Man, like they used to go around selling peanuts. So and when you move in it, it creates this musical sound. And when she moves through, you want to hear the sound of it? So when I was walking, and I should say swishing through the granite marble rooms of the State House as Miss Tampon Liberty, the sound was just,
And what was the bill that you were sponsoring?
It was to ban the sale of non-biodegradable feminine hygiene products, like these plastic one-use, and throw away. And of course, all the lobbyists from Tambran and Tampax and everything all showed up at the State House, to say no, we can't allow this. And I testified, and the police tried to throw me out of the State House, but then they looked at what I was wearing. They're like, they were speechless.
They didn't want to touch you.
No, they didn't want to touch me. They didn't want to talk to me. They just backed away. So I continued, prancing around the hallowed halls.
I think there's a theme in your work often of wanting to use something that's abject, something that's human waste or like societal waste in some way.
Well, it's about the degradation of materials, the extraction and the overconsumption of materials that really, I think, relates to death, the death of what we use. What am I trying to say? The detritus that we create, and we try to hide, and we try to ignore, we're afraid. We're afraid of our own waste. And I think that we're afraid of our own death. And I think it relates. We're in denial about who we are. And I think that death is one of the best things that's happened to human beings. Imagine living forever.
That sounds horrible.
I mean, we're lucky that we know we have this time, and it's a compressed time, and I think it's what gives us our energy, and also, it's something we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Living out in Provincetown, it is a coastal community. It's the very tip of the Cape. How do you feel about the presence of climate change and the rising of the oceans? Is that a part of your general awareness?
My whole work is about that. Is about the climate, and so all these materials washed up on beaches, and the sand that I use, and fish skins, and Christmas trees, and motor oil. It's all about reminding us about our materiality of who we are, that we're material, that we're connected to the soil. We need to listen to the vernacular and the language of the earth. It has a voice, so yeah, the Northeast Atlantic, the Northwest Atlantic actually is warming up faster than anywhere else on Earth. Did you know that? The Gulf of Maine, this area is warming up faster than anywhere else. And so it's a very huge problem here. Provincetown's built right on the harbor, there's seawalls that line the entire harbor waterfront. And so, it's a very pressing problem right here. There's such a focus on alternatives to fossil fuels and alternative ways that people are adapting to this. But a lot of the way that the media and academia and politics talks about it, they don't include activism as part of the solution, which I find really incredible. And I think it's a indication, once again, that corporations have done a good job propagandizing us, thinking that it's our responsibility, individuals, to make the change and make us feel guilty that we need to cut back on what energy that we use, right? We need to recycle, but it's a political issue. So we need to include politics and activism as one of the solutions. It isn't just about self-care and going to yoga class and welcoming the energy of the sun in the morning. We all need to do that, but we also need to look at the political reality of the situation.
And that's it for this episode of Non-Toxic. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Penny. If you'd like to support Non-Toxic, you can sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/non-toxic-podcast. You can also find us on Substack and Instagram, and keep an eye out for our upcoming collaboration with Drilled. It's a mini-series we've been working on this spring that I'm really excited to bring to all of our listeners.